It was a cold and foggy evening in London. Sherlock Holmes was sitting in his comfortable armchair at 221B Baker Street. He was reading a book about chemistry while Dr. Watson was writing in his diary. Suddenly, there was a loud knock on the door. "Come in," Holmes called. A young woman, clearly worried, entered the room. Her clothes were expensive, and she looked nervous. "Mr. Holmes, I need your help," she said quickly. "My grandfather's painting has been stolen. It is very valuable. Please, you must find it." Holmes stood up and smiled slightly. "Calm down, madam. Tell me everything from the beginning." "My name is Margaret Harrington," she began. "Yesterday evening, I was at home. We had a small dinner party with only 5 guests. This morning, I discovered that a very old painting, a family treasure, was missing from the study. I looked everywhere, but it is gone. I am very worried." Holmes nodded slowly. "Do you remember if anyone saw something strange last night?" "No," Margaret replied. "Everyone seemed normal, but I cannot be sure." Holmes turned to Watson. "We should go to her house immediately. There may be clues we can see there." The next morning, Holmes and Watson arrived at the Harrington mansion. The house was large and old, with a beautiful garden. Margaret led them to the study. Holmes looked around carefully. The window was slightly open, and the lock looked broken. There were small scratches on the wooden floor. On the carpet, Holmes noticed a tiny piece of red fabric. "Interesting," Holmes said quietly. "This is our first clue. Watson, note this carefully. They talked to the house staff. There was a butler, a maid, and a gardener." Holmes asked each of them simple questions. He watched their eyes, their movements, and listened to every word. "The butler says he was in the kitchen all evening," Holmes said to Watson. "The maid says she was cleaning the bedrooms, and the gardener says he was outside in the garden." Holmes looked at the small piece of red fabric again. "This color. It is part of a uniform. Maybe someone in the house has it, or a visitor." Holmes decided to examine the garden. He noticed footprints near the back gate. They were small, probably a woman, and they led to the street. "Our thief left in a hurry," Holmes observed. They returned inside. Holmes asked Margaret to list all the guests at the dinner party. She gave 5 names. Holmes asked about their clothing. One guest, Mr. Linton, wore a red coat for the party. Holmes smiled. Red fabric, red coat. Could it be? Next, Holmes and Watson went to the neighbor's house. Mr. Linton lived nearby. Holmes knocked. "Good morning, Mr. Linton. May I ask you some questions?" Holmes asked politely. "Yes, of course," Linton replied, slightly nervous. Holmes studied his face carefully. "You enjoyed the dinner very much last night." "Yes, very much," Linton said quickly. Holmes noticed a small tear in his coat sleeve. Inside there was a tiny piece of red fabric. Holmes held it between his fingers. "Ah, here is the evidence," Holmes said. Holmes invited Linton to the Harrington house. "We have a small problem, Mr. Linton. The painting is missing, and you were near the study window last night," Holmes said calmly. Linton looked very nervous. I didn't take it. I only wanted to look at the painting," he stammered. Holmes raised an eyebrow. "Then why did you leave the window open? And why is there red fabric here?" Linton finally admitted. "I borrowed my mother's coat to enter the room quietly. I wanted to see the painting, but I didn't plan to steal it. I was curious." Holmes nodded slowly. "Curiosity can be dangerous, Mr. Linton. Luckily we found the painting in your room before anything happened." Margaret was very happy. "Oh, thank you, Mr. Holmes. You are wonderful." Holmes smiled. "Elementary, my dear Margaret. Remember, small details often solve big problems." Watson wrote everything carefully in his diary. Another mystery solved, he thought.